Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. John Uliano, Director of Operations in a small manufacturing company with a global customer base, former student of mine, of which I'm very proud. But now, in this conversation, he makes Peter Vale and me his students. He is out there doing what it takes to make this company continually improve, and he's teaching us through his very vigorous remarks how and why that gets done. So I think you're going to learn a great deal from John, as we are, about the nature of practice. Hear it in his voice. In fact, I give you a glimpse inside his head, and you'll see that he has all of the working, moving parts, patterns, and opportunities of this small company in his head at all times. I don't know how he does it, but he sure does. John Uliano. Well, Peter, we have another practitioner, as we call you guys, who is very patient with us getting this all set up and ready to talk with us. But let me tell you what my image of John Uliano is, so you'll get a sense of why he's a special guy. Inside his head, if you were to get in there, like a planetarium show. Because inside that wonderful head, he sees all the constellations, and they're all in motion. He sees all the individual dots, and like it is a show, he can keep it all together in his head. So this plant, which is located and has been in somewhat the same location for 124 years, John?
Yep, that's correct.
When he steps inside of that place, it's like he's stepping into his planetarium in his head. And he sees everything, he hears everything, he smells everything, he knows everything. Is that you, John?
Well, first, let me just say what an honor and pleasure it is for me to be talking to both you gentlemen today. I obviously look up to, and the mentorship in the journey of learning. I look to what you guys are doing as a tremendous opportunity for me to have this conversation with you. So I first want to thank you for the time today. Really excited about the conversation and learning as well myself. So, but going back to the planetarium, and I'm glad, thanks, Doc, for not referring to it as a large empty space.
No. The show's on.
But I definitely, I love the analogy because it is, first of all, it's a beautiful thing, and being able to see patterns and to see paths to travel, to have the infinite, the future of infinite in front of this organization and the people in front of it, where we really can do anything and go anywhere. And that does resonate. So I really love that analogy, and the fact that, again, when you do walk into a company like I did with this one just over 2 years ago, and as I have in the past with other organizations, which were fantastic, it is really kind of seeing the vision. And part of the reason why I joined a company, especially being 124 years old, is when I interviewed with the ownership here, and they articulated what they do and why they do what they do, was really the reason why I was attracted to come to this organization. And really, to boil it down, actually, we have the vision now. Our purpose, our vision, and our mission is plastered all around the plant. And it's not just words on the side of the wall that you have as a check in the box. But the reason why I joined is because they truly, as an organization, believed in the future of the company and the people in the company. So our purpose is to have a secure and fulfilling future for all of Gilman's stakeholders. And that means obviously our customers, obviously our suppliers, but most importantly, the people within the organization and the community that we live in is really the reason why I joined. And it's been a great 2 years here, and I'm excited to be part of the team here.
John, a little more introduction, and then I'm sure Peter's got a ton of questions. Your title is Director of Operations, which in a small company like that means just about everything that has to be systematically functioning without fail. In fact, there may be a story in our conversation here that you can tell us about your recent massive upgrade that you did to the shop. But before we get there, I've seen you over the years bring that planetarium head of yours into a number of different types of organizations, all of which make things, all of which have that very tangible output. You brought your head into the Gilman company. And what is it that you think you bring when you enter these businesses that is unique to you? What's your special attribute, do you think, that when you're there and you know you can make great progress for them by your doing, what is that? What clicks?
So that's a great question. I mean, I first of all never look at it as me, but I look at it as what experience I've had in the past, and wherever you go, whether it's good or bad experiences with a leader or with a group of people, you learn from that. So when I do come in, I do bring, I think, a fair amount of experience with continuous improvement, which is where I grew up in. I was happy to, or luckily enough, to grow up in an organization, the Wiremo company now on the Bron, with a spirit of continuous improvement. And so when I do go into the organization, what I'd like to bring is to be able to, number one, you have to have a purpose, you have to have the vision and the mission set. And so when I do come in, and every corporation or organization, it is different, but I want to understand what is that we're trying to achieve as a whole. And once you understand that, then it's obviously what I try to bring into every organization is to share that vision and that the company's wants and needs with the rest of the organization, so everybody understands what role they play in helping us get there. So once you set that in motion, then the job is to, as a leader for me, I believe, is to, number one, educate people on the ways to do continuous improvement and to learn and to leverage and to get better day after day. And it's extremely important also for me to be the roadblock remover. So no matter where you are in the organization, and fortunate enough now in my last several opportunities with organizations, I've been placed in a high enough position where once you set that vision and you share the vision of what you're trying to accomplish and share why you're trying to accomplish that, then my role, we talk about the organizational chart and the top down, and then you flip that upside down. So now I'm not at the top of the organization. I'm at the bottom, and I look at the employees at the top, and they're obviously, if the employees know what the job is and what we're trying to accomplish as an organization, they are going to automatically serve our customers. So my job is to ensure that I'm arming the employees with all the tools that they need to be successful, whether it be the training or the proper raw materials or the proper equipment. So when I come into work, the question is that's kind of my mode of operation, is understand what are we trying to accomplish as an organization, share that vision with everybody, and then arm people with education and tools to help them succeed, to have us get there as a team.
Wow. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I mean, just this last point is quite interesting. I think most men and women in your position would, whether they said so out loud or not, they would think that all the lower downs, so to speak, are working for the higher ups. And you've got that turned on its head. You're talking about working for them and removing roadblocks, as you said, supplying them with tools and information. And I guess I have to ask without, I hope I don't sound like a naysayer, but when do you have to assert your authority? What kinds of situations do you have to assert your authority and maybe do a little bit of my way or the highway?
That's a great question.
I tell you what, it might pain you quite a bit to have to do that, but what kinds of situations do you run into that?
I tell you what comes immediately to mind is when you say that. It is absolutely when the values or the code of the organization is being violated. So one of the things that, I always kind of tell this story, especially to new hires and to my team when I first came in here, when I was going to my daughter, who's now, a sophomore, Madison in high school. When I went to her, I think it must have been second grade parent teacher meeting. I noticed up on the wall was a list of these rules. And as we were chatting, I said, just tell me a little bit about this chart and what it means. And she says, oh, that's just the rules that we have in this classroom. So when all my second graders come in, they're going to be, they look at the rules and it's going to be, we're respectful to each other. We're not going to damage property, et cetera, et cetera. And then that teacher had them sign on the bottom that they agree to the rules in that environment. So I'm certainly not equating, our organization to second graders, but what I do and where I do assert authority is when we have a working environment here and we sign up for our code of conduct or our values, which for us is integrity, transparency, accountability, and discipline. And then we have our code that we follow, which is respect others, tell the truth, do your share, keep your promises, continue to learn, all of those things. When you find that someone or a group of people are really violating the values and violating the code, that's most definitely when I look at it as my responsibility to assert the authority to correct that type of behavior and to educate them as to why that's not good and how are we going to, get back on track. But certainly when you violate the values and you violate the code that we agreed upon for the rules within this organization, that's absolutely where, you have to assert a fair amount of authority.
Does that happen very often?
Typically, I would say in the beginning, there's some feeling out. And what will happen is over time, once you correct that, it actually weeds itself out or self-corrects on its own as you gain momentum. You have a lot of the culture of the organization as they get acclimated to that. Then you find that it's actually self-governing. In the beginning, though, for sure. In the beginning, for sure. And, I've had opportunities where I had multiple facilities. They were around the globe. There were 6 in the U.S. There was 1 in South America, or 2 in South America, and they have their different cultures. But even within those different cultures, there's still a set of values and a code that as human beings that we don't violate. So as you work with these different organizations or different, the different plants I was responsible for, you had that happen periodically. And, I would say over time, as you build the team and sometimes you have to make changes, there's no doubt when someone doesn't fit that culture and don't believe in the values, and obviously it's not a right fit. So whether they go on their own or whether you help them with that process, you have less and less of that correction that's required as you go down the line, luckily.
You haven't talked so far about the kind of business you're in. I'm wondering, to what extent are you able to continually implement this philosophy, at least partly because of the nature of your business?
So Gilman, we make basically a lot of our products go into signage. So we're a manufacturer. We have extrusion, so we extrude foam and we laminate that with paper, styrene, and a lot of the products go. And you can make basically anything you want with it. A lot of it goes into marketing materials. A fair amount of it goes into signage that you see in all of the big box stores, whether it be Walmart, Target, Kohl's, the supermarkets like Stop and Shop or Kroger, all those major players, like Nike's a big customer, FedEx is a big customer, Hobby Lobby. So one of the things, so that's what we do. But in terms of continuing to drive those values, it's when we're talking to and interacting with our supply base, when we're interacting with our customers, and we're very fortunate. We have an extraordinary sales team where we sell through distribution. However, our sales team has a major focus on the end users. So we have relationships with the Nikes, we have relationships with the FedExes, and with Targets, with Best Buy. And so as we work to spec our material in from the end user level and have it drawn through the distribution channel, we still believe in, and I'm happy that we have people that are out in the field that believe in those values and believe in working that way. Honesty, integrity, doing what we say we're going to do. We're not going to bend our morals to make it advantageous for our organization. We're going to be direct and transparent. There's absolute unity in how we do business throughout, not only internal but externally within the organization.
And that type of business, that when you said we can make anything you want, basically,
with foam,
it seems to me that if you can make anything the customer wants, you've committed yourself to a position of real creativity and responsiveness, and it seems like you might kind of train the customer over a period of time to perceive you as extremely flexible and creative and able to do anything they want.
Oh, no, so it's very fortunate that being in business as long as we have, and being family run, our innovation and our flexibility has been a major advantage in the marketplace. So we've really kicked up in this last year our initiative around our new product introduction. And these are not products that are basically within our normal wheelhouse. These are things that we're reaching out into new markets that would be completely different than what we do today. It's really exciting to be part of an organization that has a lot of innovation. And so, I'm really excited about the future and the fact that we're going to branch out in a lot different markets than we're in today. So it's we've got a pretty strong team. For us, the challenge is bringing that to market. We've got a lot of ideas, but we have to make it be produced in mass scale. And so we're working hard on that.
This reminds me, Peter, of in several of our conversations for previous podcasts, we've talked about the role of the leader. And I'm hearing that resonating very strongly in what John's saying. Not just the individual, John clearly is the character of a leader, but bringing change out to this plant, this primary plant that they're in, from over the last 2 years. He has had to help every one of those people, including the owners, manage change, to know that change has to happen. And because of this galaxy, there I am back in the planetarium, of very discerning customers that he's mentioned, they can't just hem and haw about it. They have to be primed for change. John, does that resonate with you? And if so, what would be an example fairly recently of how you've had to push for change and then help people understand it and do it?
Yeah. I think that's, again, one of the reasons why I was asked to come here. I think that even with a very rich history, knowing that a lot of the ways of doing things were were done internally, maybe not as worldly as some of the things that are different ways of doing things that are out there. And I have to say that I really commend the ownership of the organization for the fact that I definitely really stress them out in terms of the amount of change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we talk about, moving out of your comfort zone is moving into the learning zone. And they've
Hooray.
really embraced that. And so, some of the examples are, just how we're structured. Again, we worked on the vision, mission, purpose so that it was clear within the organization. That was never done before. And then posting that, and then saying, okay, how are we going to align, our business to having just I will say, a more formalized strategy and a strategic plan. And that was a big step for them as well. Here's this, new guy who comes in and, what are we going to do? We're going to put this all on paper. And then now we're going to, align all of our departments towards, having these metrics, new metrics, and reporting out and having responsibility for those types of things. That was a major change. Another big change. That was huge. And also inviting the players within the organization at the different levels to be involved with the finances, the budgeting, and having fiscal responsibilities. Because as you look to plan for the future and you're setting your budgets, and it's done, could be done somewhat in a vacuum, and because that's just how it was always done. But saying, no, we're gonna open our books so that people can see what they do affects the financials, and we're going to set that up so that everybody understands that they have an impact. That's a huge I won't say risk, but it was a big change for them to accept and say, okay, let's do it that way. And so that was another, I would say, I give you probably, 2 or 3 more, but another major.
Gives us the sense of what we're talking about in not only managing change, but bringing change, which is what you've done in the last 2 years. Peter?
Do you have competitors?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I'll say we have one direct competitor. And then we have other larger competitors that mix and match with what they compete with us on. So yeah, we do have direct competitors.
Because again, all these things you've said already are competitive factors, as well as good business. And sometimes you end up with a competitor who takes advantage of some of your qualities and actually can exploit them. I hope you're not in a cutthroat industry like that, where the temptation is always to do business the way the other guys are doing business.
No, it's actually interesting you say that. So we do have a competitor, and I don't want to speak ill of anyone, but there are some practices. We're definitely right now. We are a product company. There's solution-based companies. There's all the companies. We're a product company at this point, but we're also great innovators. We have some competitors that when they are out there, they are making some deals and doing some things with relationships that we're aware of that are completely, in our opinion, not ethical. We actually pride ourselves. Now, listen, we know it's bringing them business, and it's actually bringing them a lot of business, but we will not bend on our values in knowing when these things happen. And it could have a, significant impact to our financials, but I can give you, a surety that we are actually proud of not taking certain revenue for those reasons, because that's just not who we are.
Wow.
And in saying that, you really are speaking for the owners, I would think. In a sense,
they've been tremendous to work with.
They have been what?
They've been tremendous to work with in terms of their integrity and their values. That's absolutely, again, one of the reasons why I'm here.
I'm asking questions in this way because in over the course of my own career, I've had occasion many times to issue a call to arms, so to speak, in the direction of doing business more the way that you're talking, more creativity, more teamwork, more or less my way or the highway behavior, all of these kinds of things. But I've also had occasion to realize that those values are kind of fragile, and it sometimes is the temptation is to compromise them. I guess I would say, just because a competitor is doing something that's exploiting you or making deals that you don't consider ethical, so forth. And of course, your sales force are often the first ones to hear about this kind of stuff. And so they look back over their shoulder to see if you folks in the home plant are going to back them up in continuing to do business the way you want to do business. I've run into the problem of salespeople feeling like nobody back at work understands them. No, they can't make any promises out in the field because they're not sure the folks back home will back them up, so to speak. So I guess the continual emphasis on these things that you're talking, you're basically saying your whole job is to protect this value system and make sure everybody understands it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I when I first came here, just for in the past was the past, but that relationship that you just mentioned between the sales and the operations team was definitely tested, and it was definitely strained. And I am real happy to say that, although things are never perfect, but it's been quite tremendous. I mean, one of the focuses that I have on the operations side is to ensure that we're bringing the voice of the customer into the plant. I look at the sales teams being out there as, they got their flak vests on, and when we have a major issue with quality, with delivery, and they just walked out of the customer's, their home, and we got our one lone trooper in there, and we just sent pallets of product that's not meeting the specifications, that's causing them downtime and labor issues and delivery for their customers. I want to ensure that we bring that urgency and that knowledge and that what the saleswoman's experiencing, bring that back into the organization. So it instills the sense of urgency. It instills not only for fixing, we always obviously want to remedy their situation immediately. So we're going to reship material, et cetera, but just having our team understand what levers are we going to pull now to ensure that we found the true root cause of what went wrong, and then what are we doing to fix that? The standard plan, do, check, act, and how are we instilling that in every time our customers experience that pain. And man, I'll tell you, I always try to ensure that I give credit to the sales team who's out there on the front lines, and it's a tough job to be standing out in front of a customer or on the line, and they have all these people lined up and these printers ready to go, and our product is causing their machines to crash. That's nothing worse than having to have them explain that. And so I want to make sure my team's really clear on the pain that they feel, so that we can, drive those actions internally to solve that for the long.
It's very responsive.
But it's that unity. So having them understand that, and I can honestly say, since I've been here, just another point on the sales side is building the relationships internally with the sales team, where if we have an issue, they're coming up with creative ways to say, hey, okay, maybe we're behind in manufacturing, and we can't ship that product out, but I've got another distributor that has that, and I'm going to ask them to ship from their distribution to somebody else to bail them out. So it's really this give and take relationship, and this education and understanding, and having each other sit in each other's seats and have each other's back. That it's that real teamwork that helps you win at the end of the day.
I think you said, when did you experience the magic of David Fearon? Back was about 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, I think longer now.
Gets longer every day.
So yeah, 20 plus.
You've talked a lot about learning. Have you undertaken any further, what would you say, formal learning experiences where you're basically sitting and listening, or you're going through some kind of an experience that is helping you to solidify these ideas? Or has it been pretty much informal, on the fly kind of learning?
Depends on what you classify as formal. So every day, obviously, the learning is happening. I'll tell you, I don't know whether you call it formal, but a recent example, and we haven't met yet as a group, but I had an old coworker that reached out to me, and he's running another business now. And then there were three of us that worked together in our history, and we made some pretty big advancements in a very large organization. Since then we had went our own ways, but we still keep in touch. We were just out to dinner the other night. But one of the gentlemen has a really great personality, networks quite a bit with a lot of people. We, the three of us are fortunate enough to speak at a lot of seminars, and we get to meet a lot of people who are very, they're learners themselves. And so he just reached out and said, look at, and it's funny, he wrote up a little bio of each one of us and said, every time I get together with one of you, I always take away 2 to 3 valuable business nuggets, is what he said. Mm-hmm. And he said, I want us to get together so we can continue to learn together. So, one of the things I'm looking forward to is there's probably eight of us that are going to get together on a regular basis, where we're going to be able to share our experiences, to be able to share our winnings and our failings, and help each other. And just in the course of setting up this meeting and the banter of email back and forth, there was a couple lessons learned. So we were really joking around about it, that we were setting this up to get together to learn, and in the process of doing that, we learned a couple of things.
No, and I think that's an example, though, of while John has gone through various certifications over the years. I think the main examples, what he gave us now, is a trend, Peter, that I'm putting a circle around as a nugget, because when you have people accomplishing things at John's level, and now with John's experience, and they want to form their own learning organization, small L, small O, and build from that. Not so much just, to present lessons to the world, but to help each other. That's a trend now with technology that I think is very encouraging. And in a way, going back to when John and I first started out, I made sure from the beginning in all my classes that they were there to learn from each other, with each other. And I found every technology that was available all the way up through to when I retired, that would accommodate them writing to each other and talking with each other outside the classroom as well as within. John, maybe now is my prediction that was going to be the best way for you to succeed in your practice. Is it coming true?
I'll tell you, it's been fantastic right from when I was with you, Doc. In fact, he connected me with another professor, and also a businesswoman who we actually joked about the fact that the circles that we're in with you in terms of the learning is infectious, and where we want to share this learning with each other. So we're meeting, and I'll be speaking with her on some of the topics.
Oh, that's right, Linda. Yeah.
Right. And so even from the days, Doc, when we had the learning in the classroom, but you actually, and I still don't know how you managed to do this, but got us into all of these businesses and let the students come through, and we toured, and that hands-on, that practical learning was a tremendous impact. And so I would say, Doc, absolutely yes to that. And then it brings me back to what I would love to start again, which we kind of fell out of the wayside. But as we were continuing to mature in our careers and we had successes with the business, there's a lot of associations that are out there, like Association for Manufacturing Excellence, and these are more of the formal organizations. But as we were practitioners that were learning as just happened to know people at other organizations, we created an informal networking group where we actually twice a year we would visit other plants, and we would have those people, whoever they may be, within the organization. They could bring along 5 or 6 people. We would pick a topic, have them come in, tour the facility, and have them learn on that topic. And it was very, I would say, somewhat informal, but that continued for many, many years. And it was actually some pretty good names. I was with HID at the time, but we had Hasbro in there. We had Pepperidge Farms. We had Lennox. We had insurance companies. We had a Mass Mutual was part of the group, and we went in as manufacturers and learned about their processes and their systems. And they would come in and learn the way we did strategic planning or those types of examples. So for us and for me, that is really just, having that group and having, it is a little less formal, but it's very, very impactful, especially when you bring new people into the fold.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, what you're describing, and you underlined it, Dave, is the evolution of alternative learning systems, you might say, between the traditional classroom model. And by the way, I have to say, John, that my friend here, Dr. Fearon, is rather unique in some of these techniques and methods. And one of the reasons that I've been happy to stay in touch with him over the years, every time we talk on the phone, he's got some new anecdote of something he's pulled off in the classroom that is, in a way, quite astonishing. As you say, you're not sure how he does some of these things.
Absolutely.
I wish there are still far too many. I would say on the order of somewhere between 75 and 90% of business professors who rely totally on what they can accomplish in 50 minutes or 90 minutes in the classroom without doing anything else. Maybe now with digital learning and websites and all of that sort of thing, a little more variety has been introduced to the classroom than was present and possible back when, during the peak of my career, but which didn't involve all of this digital stuff. Mm-hmm. But Dave is still very unique in this consciousness and this kind of instinctive ability to see what's needed in the learning, in helping a learning process along. So what we're talking about is the invention of, or the evolution and invention of alternative learning systems between the classroom on the one hand and the lonely individual reading magazines like a bandit at night to try to keep up with what's going on in their industry, which is very inefficient and very tiring for the people who are trying to do it that way. Whereas one of the interesting things about these systems that are evolving, you actually look forward to participating in them.
Right.
You circle them on your calendar. You try very hard not to let anything interfere with them. You inevitably walk away with some nuggets, so to speak. It's really quite exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting for as a personal thing, but what's just as exciting is when you can grab 2 or 3 of your coworkers, introduce them to the group, and then have them continue those relationships, or the phone call, or, hey, I have a problem with this thing. I remember that guy in my meeting. And so this is like it's like the, throwing the pebble in the pond and the rippling of this community of learning, and it just continues to grow. And so as you introduce more people into those situations, it exponentially grows. And it's just, to me, it's like it's the fuel for the heart, to continue to have, what I consider, amazing learning experiences from people that are out there doing it. And
Right.
Believe me, I always go back to when I was with Doc many moons ago, and this, like, organizational behavior, what does that mean?
Yeah. You're looking at the guy who came up with that term back in the day. Not me, but Peter and his group.
Yeah.
I was part of a survey on that question, and we actually got somebody who said they thought organizational behavior was like, did you bring your hanky today?
Etiquette.
You have, hygiene and etiquette and that sort of stuff. That's organizational behavior.
Yeah. We've come a long way since then, and Peter's been with that whole history. I think one thing that, John, you said a moment ago about bringing the workforce out to places, into connections, so they can do their own learning as well as the learning you and the others who run the company are doing. Peter wrote a book called Learning as a Way of Being back in the mid-90s, around the time you were my student. And he foresaw so much of this notion that the individual is ultimately responsible for their learning, but they have to look forward. They have to find something that excites them, something that makes them want to drive their own learning. And you accommodate that as part of your leadership there at the plant. You see them not just as guys who run these big, somewhat noisy machines extruding foam, but as fellow learners. Is that not true?
That's absolutely. I guess and again, I was fortunate enough growing up at the wire mill company. That was the only way. It was how are you, no matter where you are within the organization, are you learning and improving and making things better? So now, absolutely, as having a position in the organization that I have, I think it's my responsibility to ensure that my fellow employees are constantly learning, they're constantly improving, they're constantly, and again, it's not a work thing, it's a life thing. You always talk about, or I think about myself as, how am I bettering my education or my learning, formal or informal, to be a better husband, to be a better father, to be a better leader, to be a better person in the community. So when you mentioned, how I look at things, that for me it's not one that I expect that they are just learning for the organization, but they're learning as human beings.
Yeah.
And whether they're within our company or because they did so well and they learned, and maybe we don't have the right opportunity, which that would be a shame. But if they're going to continue on somewhere else, then that's a great thing. I've done my job. And that is really, that is my job, right? Is to be able to have people learn and grow and as people. So yeah, there's no doubt, Doc. I mean, you really, helped to solidify by saying it, but I look at myself more as the teacher and the mentor, than just, the boss or the director of operations.
So you've defined your practice that way. Let me capitalize very quickly on our planetarium image, and then maybe Peter has at least one more thought or question. In the planetarium image, when you walked in 2 years ago, you looked up into the sky and you saw some bright spots. But now, 2 years later, by bringing that learning opportunity and encouragement to all those people working there, maybe 200 or 300 people, look up again and you see bright, 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 bright. You see a lot more light, a lot brighter individuals, and collectively the whole sky gets a little more beautiful. Is that fair?
That's fair. It's not the trains coming at you, it's the lights.
There you go.
Of the many stars. And it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see that. Yeah.
Peter, last thoughts? Comment?
Well, I'm just thinking it's entirely possible that as you develop in your own career and become more and more aware of the richness and the kind of texture of what you're talking about and how it compares to the norms, which is far from what you're doing, is still stuck more in the my way or the highway, the authoritarian model, where so many thousands of managers hearing you talk would say it's awfully nice if you can do it, but in my job, no way. I'm fighting fires continually. I really can't do the kind of transformation it would take for me to become a manager like John is. And you really have a message here. And I hope this podcast may have a few listeners who pick up the phone and ask you to come into their company and talk to a few people.
At least we'll get them on
Zoom. Maybe a few professors like Dave who would like to have you come by their classrooms.
Well, Peter, I had them come to my classes every year since he graduated.
Don't take yourself for granted, I guess I'm saying, because you really are on the leading edge, as far as I can see.
Oh, I really appreciate that, and I'd be honored to do that, and I really appreciate those comments, especially coming from two people I really admire. It's the way of being for maybe just one comment for the manager that's out there, and I know we're short on time, is that saying, too many fires. I just have to tell people what to do every day. But what will happen is, in my opinion, when you operate that way, the fires will continue to come that way until you can teach these people to fish and have an army of people that are being on the offense instead of the defense. It's going to be more of the same.
Well, you've brought a lot of good to the Gilman Corporation. I know the owners appreciate it very much, and I know the employees do. I know your suppliers do, and your customers in the supply chain do. What you're looking at on screen right now, John, as we're closing, is the supply chain. Peter taught me to feel this way particularly about practice. I then taught you by taking you around and showing you places where things were being done well, but a cut above. And now you, in the supply chain, are honoring the practice of your employees and your customers and your suppliers, and you're teaching them something. So, Peter, our work here is done.
No, it's just beginning.
We can rest on our laurels or no. You see, John, we're doing this podcast because we can't stop this. It's a compulsion and an obsession and a lovely sense for us to be so interested in how you all out there take yourselves seriously enough to continually learn and test and grow and work in some of the wildest west that we've been in the world. So you're doing it. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you guys. It's an honor to be part of this, and it's an honor to continue on. So it's and it's inspiring to see that it doesn't stop ever. It's the learning continues. And
look at us.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. Absolutely appreciate the time, guys.